What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockeytown University. You are here with us once again, your hosts, brand new hosts, actually, Carlo and Zach. Carlo, my dude, what is going on? I will leave the floor open to you to give a brief rundown on who you are, what you do, and what kind of brings you onto the pod.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, so really excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to, just kind of have this outlet to talk about the Red Wings, the past, let's call it 10 years and kind of what we're looking forward to in the future. It's a lot of casual fans. I'm in Windsor, Ontario, so I'm right across the border from Detroit. So naturally, some fans here for sure, but I think they gravitate more towards the Leafs just because it's Canada. Sucks for me big time. And with that said, it's just a lot of casual fans. So, I mean, I have my own tight, buddies from school and whatnot that we stay in touch, watch a lot of games, and they're obviously super fans, diehards like we are. But to have an outlet like this and to obviously be part of that amazing Twitter community, especially for Red Wings hockey, it's awesome because you can really obviously learn a lot just from different people's opinions and perspectives on the game, on the team and whatnot. But to be able to bring it to this and speak to other people and hopefully make some casuals into some diehards as well is a super exciting opportunity for me. And I'm really, really happy to be here. So thanks again for having me on. Really, really appreciate it. And really looking forward to what we can do here.
Yeah, for sure, bud. We're happy to have you on. I know our other hosts, Matt and Derek, aren't here today. They're busy doing weekend stuff. It's great to have the other insider knowledge, especially what's going on in Canada. Me being in Ohio myself, as much as I hate to say it, it's always good to get more perspectives. And a little background about how Carlo and I met. Actually, he brought up Twitter, and that's exactly how we met, right? I think we were kind of talking crap a little bit towards each other on some comment.
Totally.
Can't really remember too much, but that's the dialogue and how it starts, right? And then we started connecting with each other, saying like, yeah, we got golden retrievers. Just being able to intertwine those connections and being able to make those connections, it's awesome to be able to meet, other fans around the globe, whether if they're in the United States, Canada, or even overseas. We know plenty of people that live over in Sweden and other parts of the country that just absolutely love the Red Wings as much as we do. And so we're more than glad to have you on, buddy. So thanks for joining us and being a regular moving forward. So we definitely look forward to see what we got planned up for the future. And so let's go ahead and just jump right into it, Carlo. And
Absolutely.
So we know that we've been gone for a while, been on a little hiatus, but we are back. We're ready to get going again. And so with that, let's go ahead and talk about the game last night. We are recording on February 25th, 2024. And let's go ahead and talk about the Detroit Red Wings playing against the St. Louis Blues, where the Detroit Red Wings ended up beating them 6-1 and scoring 4 goals right out the gate. And I believe, Carlo, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was the fastest 4 goals that the Red Wings have scored since 1993, if that's what it showed on the TV when they brought that up, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. I can't remember the exact year, but yeah, they're definitely starting. Like I saw someone put, on Twitter, it's like, is this game? Are they playing this game at the Joe the way they're snapping that puck around?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's so funny that they said that because it really did bring you back to those years. And I guess that's a testament to their play of late. But yeah, I can't remember the exact year, Zach, but I know for them to come out like that and score, I think they had 3 goals before the Blues even registered a shot on net.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was a really, really good game. Like we talked about earlier, their level of play has been 100% elevated. Not exactly sure if that's coming from the coaching staff, the senior leadership team, or if it's just coming naturally from the players within the room. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I really do think it's coming from the guys within the room, but they played a really good game. And the one stat that stood out to me the most was before the game started, the ESPN guys talked about how the St. Louis Blues, I think they have notoriously out-hit their teams. And Detroit actually out-hit them yesterday. And we talked about this too. Like, they don't really have that bruiser, but they're just playing, like, the way they're playing, it's just different. And it's weird because it's been a long time, but it's also very exciting at the same time. And that stat, I wanted to mention that stat because it did stand out to me right before the game dropped. They were talking about how you can expect Detroit to block some more shots and you can expect St. Louis to hit some more. I don't have the stat pulled up on me on the block shots, but I know Jake Wallman blocked a couple beauties. But to see us out hit them I was like, wow, that's very, very interesting to me. But great game, man. Very, very complete game. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily say that this is a top 5 performance so far from the Red Wings this season. And I could even make the argument that the game against the Colorado Avalanche was probably by far a top 3 game for them in a nutshell because of going into overtime, shutting down players like Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, and players like those. No disrespect to a St. Louis Blues team, they're a very heavy hitting team, much like you said. And so, yeah, just beating them out in that aspect. But going back to what you mentioned, you talked about block shots. Yeah, St. Louis Blues, they had 13 block shots, and we still were able to get 34 shots on net compared to their 23, and we only had 6 block shots, right? And so even going and talking about these other stats, the power play, the penalty kill, the Red Wings, before the St. Louis Blues, or right as the St. Louis Blues were going on to their power play, the Red Wings have converted on 22 out of their last 23. The Red Wings shut down the St. Louis Blues this game on the 2 power play opportunities that they had. And so going back to that point, it's now 24 out of 25. Everything with this team is clicking, right? They were able to even convert 1 time on their power play instance, right? Out of the 3 opportunities that they have. They're winning on their faceoffs. They were 51%, 27 out of 53 compared to St. Louis's 49%, 26 to 53. And so, yeah, this team is just overall clicking, and it's amazing to see. And credit to the coaching staff, Alex Tanguay. I was someone who's been ragging on Alex Tanguay for quite some time, but let's not take away from these players, right? These veteran players that Steve Yzerman brought in, right? The Perrons, the Kanes, the Petries, even if you want to mention him, he matters too. As much as you don't want to admit that, Petrie adds plenty of value outside of just being on the ice. The locker room presence means a lot, especially when you have players like Lucas Raymond, who's been on a complete tear. And we can talk about that here down the line, but let's kind of talk about the Red Wings as a whole. After this game ended, the leading amount of goal scorers in the NHL with 12 double-digit goal scorers on the team. What does that mean?
One of them being Jake Wallman, too. I mean, That's a big credit to him. That's incredible.
Yeah, what does this mean for a team that, looking at last season, they were beat out around this time from ever making it into the playoffs, and they were sellers at the deadline. So what does that mean to this team right now?
Well, I think that when you see that on paper, I guess, you look at it, and there's many different lenses to look at this through, but I think the one that I kind of tend to look at it through is I think these guys are really bought into this system that is being driven down to them by the Tanguays, the Bugners, and the Lalondes. It took a while, I think, for them to kind of find their groove. And you go back and you look at their play in December and still kind of early in the season. And I mentioned it too. Like I was beating on those guys too. It's just like, I think I made a comment online where it's like, why is it that the more games that are going on, the less involved in the systems they look? Because that's kind of what was happening. And I think they've just really found a way to work through the kinks and more importantly, find out how each other plays. I mean, keep in mind, Yzerman brought in a lot of new faces. And these weren't just like one-off faces. Like these were all, to a degree, some household names. And I know Perron's been around for a little while, but he's one of them. Comfer's another one. Obviously, Patty Kane is an incredibly big household name. And I think these guys need to figure out, because there's a lot of young guys too, and I think these guys are starting to figure out what makes each other's tick. And that's happening, obviously, on the ice. We're seeing that. I just wish I could be a fly on the wall to see what's going on off the ice, because I really feel like these guys are gelling very, very well off the ice. I saw somebody post a photo of Marit Seider with Alex DeBrinket's son, Archie, and they're like just all over each other. And it was a very cute image. It was great to see, but there's just such a tightness that you can feel and sometimes get the pleasure of seeing through photos online, that I really think these guys are becoming friends and really getting to know each other. And I mean, you look at the calendar, it's really perfect timing for that to happen. And there isn't really a timeline, like I think a set timeline, like, okay, by January 1st, you guys are going to be super tight. You're going to be taking pictures with it. Like doesn't really work like that. I think it's just we're seeing something very organic unfold here, and I think that's the most exciting piece about this. And I think, I guess to wrap it up, like I said, I really do think that they're getting used to the system. They're bought into it, and they are playing at the level that is expected of them within this system. So, very exciting times ahead, man. I'm really, really pleased with the way they've been kind of going about their business, and I really like their attitude about it. It's just 2 points. We're on to the next game.
Yeah, and that's something that Lalone always says too. I like to live in, current time. I don't like to look too much into the past, into the future. And so talking about currently right now, this game, let's go ahead and do a little more deep dive into this game. Alex DeBrincat ended up getting the first star of the game with 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. Patrick Kane getting the second star, 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points. And then you got Michael Rasmussen, who just recently signed that extension. And a very, very good extension, mind you. 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points. And talking about the goal scorers real quick, Patrick Kane opens up the scoring within the first, 33 seconds of the game, followed up by Michael Rasmussen, Robbie Fabry, who gets one off of his leg, it looked like, Alex DeBrincat, all 4 goals within the first period, which is just insane. And it's funny that Alex DeBrincat scored that after a lot of, no offense to the Senators fans, but a lot of their fan base were criticizing on how he hasn't been scoring a lot lately. And so he must have taken a lot of offense from that and said, well, let me just pop 2 over real quick and I'll try and get it.
Yeah. I was just going to say, how many posts has he hit, though?
Seems like damn near 100, bud.
You know what I mean? I feel like the guy, again, the human element, right? He's it's not for a lack of trying. It's not for a lack of playing poorly or making mistakes. I think Alex is playing very, very well. Obviously, that showed yesterday, and it finally broke through. But I mean, it's you go through that. You're going to go through that in anything. He's going through it right now. If we can get him to find that 5th gear like he did and keep it going for the next few months, that's exactly what we want. No doubt about it. But I wanted to preface by saying I don't think it's for a lack of trying or a lack of skill set. I mean, we know what Alex DeBrink is capable of. Again, I don't know the number, but I do know there's been a ton of posts. You know what? Daniela Bruce would know because she's always commenting and tweeting about how many posts are being hit. So maybe we sidebar her on that one. But
yeah, that definitely would be the first one to know because I believe she tweeted that out right before the game started or right at the start of the game too. Yeah, she would be the person to know that. But going into the second is when St. Louis did put themselves on the board thanks to he's a rookie, supposedly Zach Bolduc, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He gets one off of Brandon Saad. Kind of beat Alex Lyon clean, honestly. A little bit bad read by Sherratt, who also went in to try to get the puck out of the corner, whoever that was with them. We talked about that through our chat group, right? And so just a little blown assignment, it's going to happen here and there. So no big deal, right? We're still out 4-1. And credit to this team to stick to the script, to just keep playing heavy hockey and forcing it down their throats, right? Because then you got JT Comfort coming along, scoring 1, getting his 14th of the year, and then Alex DeBrincat scoring his 2nd later on in the period, closer to the end of the period. Scoreless in the 3rd, but credit to the boys once again for playing shutdown on this St. Louis Blues team, who is not a bad team by any means. Are they as deep as we are? On paper, I do not think so. But, Carlo, like I said in our group chat, if Binnington was in net, I'm changing my score prediction from 5-2 to 6-1, and I should have placed $5 on it, dude. I'm still kicking myself in the rear for that one. So
that was an incredible score prediction by you. I must give my hat off to you on that one because that was wild. And as soon as they started, at 33 seconds in, I'm like, oh, my God, this actually might happen.
And I never get those right either. So I was very shocked myself. And thank you for highlighting that to me. 6-1. Yeah, let's go. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? One thing I wanted to mention too, and just to kind of temper expectations, the Wings are playing very, very well right now. They're playing at that high elite level. They've definitely leveled up their game. You talk about that one goal that they scored, that St. Louis scored. And I really think that was probably the only mistake that they made. I mean, it's easy to call it a mistake because obviously St. Louis converted on it, but to make one, like I've seen games where it's like 60 minutes of mistakes. You know what I mean? We've definitely seen games where it's a full 20 minutes of mistakes.
Yeah.
So just the way they're handling that, and just like you said, sticking to the script and getting right back out there and playing is really awesome to see. But I just keep coming back to the word weird. Like it's just weird to me because it's been a long time. It's been a long time. 7 years, some would argue 9 years, 10 years, whatever. But to see this and to see them elevate their play like that, to really, limit their mistakes down to 1 or 2 per game while the offense is still rolling is it's very, very exciting for sure.
Yeah, and I really don't know what or when, I should say, that this team really started to figure out, but I noticed it a lot more when going back to the Colorado game that was played on February 22nd, where we beat them in overtime 2-1. There were multiple times where it was very much back and forth, where Colorado looked like that they were on a power play. It looked like the Red Wings were on a power play, that they were cycling the puck very well, matching the tempo of the Colorado Avalanche. And thanks to Patrick Kane, Showtime being able to close it out, thanks to a nasty backhand pass by Larkin, the no-look backhand pass, this team is just playing incredible lights out. I don't know what is lighting the fire underneath them, but they're just playing so well. But even before that, they were beating Calgary 5-0 on February 17th. The Seattle Kraken 4-3 on February 19th. And then you're going into this game winning 6-1. I mean, Carlo, the whole entire game, every time that they were staying in the zone, and they looked like that they were on a power play every single time that they were out there. It was just magnificent to see. And that's kind of going back to Alex Tanguay, and then you brought up Bob Budner. I've been really harsh on them. However, can we appoint all the credit to them? No, I don't think so. And I think you have to point the credit to a lot of these new players, and not even new players, but even someone like David Perron, Ben Sherratt, who has been playing absolutely fantastic. The top pairing definitely wasn't for him, as we've noticed last year, but going into this year, playing on the second pairing is the bread and butter for him. And talking about these new players, another fantastic stat that we heard, 75 points have come from all those new players that Steve Yzerman signed in the offseason. Depth. It's very important. And a lot of people online, especially on Twitter, were ridiculing the moves that Steve Yzerman made. It's very easy to say, oh, you signed Justin Hall to 3 years by $3 million, whatever he's making. And it's like, okay, we always have to have that one player. And last year it was Ben Sherratt. But look at him now. And kind of talking about Justin Hall, I do feel like that there could be somewhat of a resurgence next year, but I'm going to hold my breath on that. Yeah, this team is just insane right now, and you got to ride on the hot train while you can. And I've been pounding on the table for that since, oh boy, when was it? I guess since November. You got to stick with the boys, and I get it that they lost 4-8 to an Edmonton Oilers team, last week, but every team has those kinds of games, right? And so you have to stick with it. But what does it mean to have these 75 points from these new players coming in to this team? What does that exactly mean? And how did Yzerman really foresee that these players could contribute more than what we had last season?
Well, I think I don't know. Steve would probably be the first one to tell you, like, he had no idea that these guys were going to put up X amount of points. I think that's one of the greatest attributes and characteristics of Steve is he's not trying to say, I can read the future and this is what's going to happen. He's pretty clear about that and consistent with that. But I think it's a credit to the coaching staff. I think Steve, the one thing I like about this organization is that they're very clear on the coaches coach and the general managers manage, but they do have that middle ground where, they're going to obviously have their meetings to determine, what they want. How much analytics play a part of it, I don't really know. For some reason, the Red Wings kind of keep that under wraps in terms of how much they really lean in on the analytical piece. But I think that Steve brought in players that he figured and thought that Newsy and co could really, click and get behind. And now you're just seeing the dividends kind of pay off on that. You know what I mean? I kind of look at players like stocks, and then when they take off and do well, it's dividend pays, right? And that's kind of the reality of it, or just another lens to look at it through. And who's going to know these players better than Stevie Y, number one, his scouting staff for sure. And then, of course, you have a guy like Newsy who, every player talks about how, good of a coach he is, how good of a communicator he is, and how good of a, I guess, just developer he is. That's been very clear to me, like even since day one, and I started doing some research on him. Like players really like him because they learn from him. And I think that's kind of where this all kind of boils into here, is the fact that, Stevie trusts his team, his coaches, and he's getting players that are specifically aligned with the coach's vision and kind of their box checkers, if you will. So I think that's what that comes down to. Again, I don't think he could have predicted any of this. I really don't think that's possible. It's just the reality of it. But I think what you're seeing now are the dividends pay off, and that starts with how this team is playing within a system that these coaches designed. And credit to the coaches for sticking with it, because how many times have we seen, teams really kind of restructure and completely turn the wheel in a different direction based off of their players? It's like, not with this team. They seem to be really sticking to this system and just waiting for the players to catch, as opposed to scrapping it and restarting it. No, like they're pretty consistent. Like, this is the way this is the way we're going to do it. This is the vision we have. It's got to be done like this. Let's check these boxes to get to, step 2. And they've stuck with that. And it looks like they have taken a really big stride in not only buying into that system, like I mentioned earlier, but they are now playing, again, back to my comment, like they were snapping that puck around in the O-zone against Colorado, against St. Louis. And one thing, not to go too off the rails here, but one thing I wanted to mention was, I don't know what the total time was for that Detroit-Colorado game, but dude, that was the best paced game I've seen all year.
Yeah.
And not just for the Wings, like it was a great game altogether, but the pace of that game was unbelievable. Like, it was just back and forth. And to see us hang, with the Rantanens and the McKinnons, the Makars, like to see us hang with that was like the first, like, whoa, like something's happening here. You know what I mean? Like something's turning. The tides are turning a little bit here. And then to come out against St. Louis and do what they did there, 33 seconds into your point, Patty Kane, picking up where he left off. I'm really excited for tonight's game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. The Red Wings will be playing tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. It will be 6 p.m. Eastern time. It's not nationally broadcast, right? We mentioned that.
It is not. No, it is not nationally broadcast. And I think the reason for that is because Ken and Mick and the Bally Sports guys are just the best in the business. So I am super pumped that Ken and Mick get to call that game. I'm sure Chris Chelios and Patty Kane appreciate it too. So
yeah, where they will be retiring Chelios' number. We get to see Bedard, see the tribute video for Patrick Kane where he swears on his life that he watched his highlight reels 100 times over and over again. So I think that will be pretty cool, but I'm really expecting Patrick Kane to lay a hit on Bedsy a little bit there, just to kind of tell him, like, hey kid, like, you run the show here now, but don't forget who started it all for him.
Yeah.
But before we continue, we kind of brought up the young players, and let's kind of talk about that. So there's not any, rookies on this team. There's not really any second-year players on this team. I guess if you really want to count Veleno, I guess this is technically his second full season, but he's not a sophomore anymore, right? And so, but let's talk about Lucas Raymond, who in his last 10 games, he's got 3 goals, 8 assists, and 11 points. And then kind of talking about the older player, we keep on mentioning Patrick Kane, who's got 5 goals, 7 assists for 12 points in the last 10 games as well. You cannot sit here and say Patrick Kane does not offer more than what he brings on the ice and the stat sheet. He definitely was signed to pick his brain and give information to these younger players. Would you agree with me on that?
100%. Absolutely. His brain, I think, is what makes him so valuable. Obviously his hands and what he's doing, but his brain, which a lot of people tend to forget because it's just, you're watching the game, Patty Kane didn't back check there. Patty Kane, wow, he's got it. I think it was a very interesting stat where this is his best defensive year in his career.
Yeah.
And again, back to my earlier point about systems, these guys are completely bought into the way Newsy wants this team running. And if that doesn't kind of tell you that, Patrick Kane having his best defensive year of his career, I don't know what else is going to tell you that. But yeah, man, I think that to be honest with you, I think low-key Patty Kane is mentoring Lucas Raymond big time. Patty Kane's not a big guy. Lucas Raymond's not a big guy. I saw Lucas Raymond lay a crazy hit yesterday. Like, he's defending himself. He's playing with tenacity. He's playing with confidence. He's making some crazy moves. I mean, you go back to that goal he scored against Vancouver, which again was another great start by the Wings. They scored within a minute and 10 seconds or something like that. Yeah. Lucas Raymond opened it up with that nasty move. And it's like, it has to make you wonder, like, is Patty Kane rubbing off on this guy? What's practice like? And again, to be a fly on the wall when they're not playing hockey would be like, that would be really cool, because I absolutely do believe that Patty Kane is having a big effect on Lucas Raymond. And I think that's one of the first things I think I told you when the Patty Kane signing happened. I said, let's see what happens with Lucas now, because I think that's exactly what he needed, that kind of player. And I think we saw, and we talked about even last season, David Perron being that guy, because, again, another household name. Perron is a fantastic player. But Patty Kane, I think, is a little more aligned with Lucas Raymond's skill set. And I definitely think there's something happening there in the form of mentorship, or just, again, that Patty Kane brain that is so valuable to really anybody, but especially to players that are similarly tuned the way Patty Kane is, like Lucas Raymond.
Yeah, and not saying that I'm nervous now for what Lucas Raymond can garner for his next contract extension, but it's increasing as the games go on. He's looking absolutely fantastic out there. Yeah, Lucas Raymond currently in 57 games, 16 goals, 32 assists for 48 points. I had him pegged, I believe, to get near the 60-point mark. It looks like that he's definitely going to beat that. The last time I checked, he was on pace for 69 points. AO, we love that number. But let's kind of go into, you brought up Perron and we mentioned Kane. So Emily Kaplan, after the game, it might have been during the game too, said Steve Yzerman is looking to extend both of these guys. Kane was a given, right? But let's talk about Perron, because this is a player who, while he's not really doing too much on the score sheet in 51 games, 12 goals, 16 assists for 28 points, he's a leader in this locker room through and through. Yeah. So what's your expectations in terms of extensions for both of these? I mean, for me, it's looking like I'm giving Perron a 1-year deal. I know he's getting older in age. Same thing with Kane. But Kane, dude, I even said this on the phone to my dad when he called me during the game. He's got hands like Pavel Datsyuk, and we have not seen a player like that since Pavel Datsyuk on this Detroit Red Wings team.
Yeah, it's his hands and the way he it's just he's like the Lionel Messi. He's got that Lionel Messi type of vibe to him, where he can read a play before it happens, and you can see that in the way he uses those hands. And I guess that's, right back to that brain of his. Like contract wise, like, to be honest with you, the way he's playing and the way he is affecting or positively impacting the guys around him, such as the Lucas Raymonds, I would even say the Joe Velenos. I would probably give Patty Kane like a 2x6.
Yeah,
I really would. It's Patty Kane, man. Like it's not like you're just paying for hands. There's a completely different element to it. And that's the brain too. But I mean, you got to remember and you got to respect the fact that it's Patty Kane. So it's like, you better come at him with an offer that's going to, make him continue reading past the first paragraph, so to speak, because it's Patrick Kane. I think at this point he's going to be coveted. And I think Yzerman needs to, and I'm sure he will, it's Steve Yzerman, but I think he really needs to, give that some good thought, in terms of giving him an offer that is, a respectable offer. And I think he will. But personally, and maybe there's bias to this, I would probably go 2x6. Really eager to see what Prashant is, his projection is on that. I don't know if he released that or if he put anything online about that, but very curious to see what he would have to say about Patty Kane. And then for Perron, I struggle with giving David Perron more than like a 1-year deal, like you said, but like 2.25, something
you definitely
like that.
You definitely have to go to David Perron and ask him to take somewhat of a cap-friendly deal, right? Not saying that is 4.5, if that's what it is that he's making, that it's not a team-friendly deal, but you have to sell him that, yes, it's easy for us to say like, oh, Yzerman has the upper hand, and so he can hog tie him and forcing them to sign for whatever they want if they want to be on a good team. it doesn't always work that way, right? And so you have to be, much like you said, respectable to the name. It's David Perron. He's a household name. Patrick Kane, household name. And by offering them a 1 by 1.5, that ain't going to cut it. That's a
no. It's
like those, you know? But I'm with you there that, like, if you can convince him that, like, hey, we appreciate what you do on and off the ice. We want you to continue to stay on this team, but we need you to help us out when we have the Lucas Raymonds, the Siders, the Canes. If you want to re-sign Sprong, re-sign Sprong. We only have so much cap space, and we don't want to end up where we're just stuck with a bunch of contracts, right? That we can't get rid of if something does go wrong. But I think the way you have to sell it to David Perron is we appreciate what you do on and off the ice. We want you to be on this team. We need you to be that middle six, maybe bottom six kind of guy. And if an injury arises, then that's when we're going to bump you up. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think that's so. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of it. But again, on the other side, you got to remember, like, David Perron's played for, you know, a fair share of teams. He's not afraid to move around, and that's why I bring up the fact that you got to put that respect on that name. So I don't know what the right number is. You know, like I'm again biased. I'm like, yeah, 1 by 2.25. I mean, what do I know about that, right? I'm just throwing out a number there, thinking about the rest of the people that we need to sign and that we want to sign. But I think I think it comes down to the player. Does the player love where they're at? And that's a key thing. Like, you know what I mean? Because to be like, yeah, I like it here versus, you know, I love it here. Like, there's a big difference between those 2 4-letter words that are just monstrous. Because if Perron does love it here and he loves the people he's surrounded by, then, you know, at that point you're like giving him a reason not to go anywhere else, because there's no guarantee that he's going to like it anywhere else or he's going to gel anywhere else. I mean, sure, it's David Perron. He seems like a likable guy. I'm sure he'll fit in well, but I just think what he's doing here and what they're doing as a unit and as an organization is we're starting to get into that special word. What we're seeing is special. And I mean, I'm going to bring his name up because I think he did the goal horn before the game started against St. Louis. But look at Ben Johnson. Love Ben Johnson, big Ben Johnson fan. But I mean, he's turned down 2 years in a row now head coaching positions to finish what they've started. So I guess if we're seeing the beginning of the Red Wings start something here, I think that is invaluable when it comes to a player saying, I want to stay here because we just started something. I want to be a part of the reason of seeing it through. That is where I think Perron and Kane stay for it. Call it a team friendly deal if you want, but I think it's that I think it's just that. If these guys are truly starting something here, that I think is, again, it's invaluable. You cannot put a dollar figure on that, and there's going to be too much pride involved to walk away from that over what? Over what? After taxes? What are we talking about here? I really don't know, but come on, guys. Like, let's focus on starting this. Let's make sure that we can officially say, you know, at the end of the season, at the end of the postseason, whatever the case may be, the Red Wings have started something special here, just like the Lions did. And I think that headline, if you will be enough to say I would bet whatever amount that Kane and Perron are back next season because of that. And I'm biased, hopeful thinking, wishful thinking, call it what you want. That's just the way I look at it.
No, I'm right there with you. And a lot of things that people tend to forget about, not saying that you didn't bring this up, but a lot of people tend to forget, you know, the family aspect of it, right? It's the difference between like and love. Do you like playing here or do you love playing here?
Yeah.
And someone like Alex DeBrincat, who continuously, it seems like it's every game, he's bringing his child now that they have another child. So congrats to them. You know, I always see David Perron bringing his kids to the rink too.
For practice too. He's even there. He's bringing his kid for practice, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's almost like a huge like family get together for this team, and players like Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond, they absolutely love him when these kids come around, and they're really good with them too. And so I just don't see a reality where, I mean, if you want to call it a low ball offer, call it a low ball offer. If you offered him 1 by 1 for David Perron, whatever. I think that whatever we offer him, he's going to want to stay because I think that he truly does love it here. And I think his family loves being in the city of Detroit or wherever they live. I firmly believe that Steve Yzerman is the man to get it done. I think both of them can really stay and contribute a lot to this team in the future moving forward. But talking about trade rumors, we kind of talked about extensions. So let's talk about trade rumors. Perron was involved in said trade rumors. I was saying, hey, if the Red Wings are kind of on the fence on what to do, I think David Perron would be a good sell at the trade deadline. But because of this extension talk, it makes a lot of sense that we would love for him to stay. But let's talk about the trade rumors now. It's more focused on our defensive side. And so, Carlo, in your mind, who's on the out? I mean, you have contracts like Ben Sherratt. I said earlier that he's looking better, but that contract really isn't team friendly for anyone right now because not a lot of teams have cap. You have Justin Hall. That's a healthy scratch night in, night out, pretty much. Mm-hmm. You know, so in your mind, who's on the out if we do end up trading a defenseman?
You know, that's a really good question, Zach. Like, I don't know, because the way, and I guess it's only, you know, it's only been a couple of games now where, like, I'm convinced that this team is really truly doing something special. But, you know, it's very hard for me to kind of realize or visualize, who is on the out, because they're all playing well. And yeah, like, again, are there still mistakes? Absolutely. Nobody's perfect. And this team, you know, you look at the defense and, you know, you're like, yeah, okay, it's okay, it's decent, but there's probably going to be some mistakes. So I think they're playing above expectations currently, to be completely honest with you. But to say who's the out, I don't know. But what I do know is that you got to be careful with that one, because they've, again, like, back to my point, like, if they've just figured out this system that this team or this organization wants to, you know, put out on the ice, and they're playing within that system and they're playing well within that system, you got to be careful about, you know, bringing somebody out or taking somebody out to bring somebody in, whether that's from GR or a trade. It's now you got a whole new, like, get to know me process. And what happens during that process? Do we see what happened in December? Like, is that going to happen? We don't really want to see that happen, considering how well they're playing. So, like, I don't even know. And to be honest with you, Zach, I don't even think Yzerman knows, because I really don't. Like, it's just, it's such a weird position to be in, because, you know, that old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I mean, Was it broke? It was. There was some clearly very poor defense happening, but the way they're playing right now, and maybe we need to see it for another, you know, until, what is it, March 8th, March 10th, so another week and a half for the trade deadline. Maybe we need to go all the way to that to really make a better educated decision based off of a larger sample size, because we're really coming at this with the sample size of, like, the last 4 or 5 games where they've really played tight and sound. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a sample size guy. I want to see this go, and I'd love to have this conversation again on March 10th. I don't want to, like, dodge or deflect the question. I just don't think there's enough information to be confident in saying who's going. This guy's going. Right. I'm not confident in that yet, and that's, again, a credit to the team and a credit to the guys, because they're making this so hard, which is a great thing, but they're making it so hard to put a name on the who's out list. And that's exactly the challenging piece you want to be in when it comes to this time of year. So thank you, Detroit Red Wings, because I don't know who's on the out based on how incredibly well you guys are playing. Let's talk about this in a week and change, and see if that changes just based off of raw numbers and sample size.
And I agree with you. I think, you know, it's very difficult to see and understand what Yzerman might be trying to do at this trade deadline. Honestly, I'm agreeing with you that I don't think that he even knows what he's trying to do at this trade deadline. Maybe all he wants is just to add depth pieces and keep the roster as it is. I mean, everyone on our defense, other than Shane Gosper, has term left after this season. And so could you trade Shane Gosper? Sure. He technically plays on the right side for us majority of the time. You can push him over to the left, but then you look at the defense as a whole, it's very log jammed, you know? And so even if we did end up trading one of them, you're not going to be able to bring Simon Edvinsson up, and we'll kind of go into that further, but I think you probably want him to stay in Grand Rapids Griffins right now. They're on a heater themselves, and we'll touch on that here in a little bit.
Yeah, totally. you got to think about so someone leaves, it's like who's filling those shoes and how quickly are they going to adjust, to those shoes and to the plays and to the getting to know this person and this person. And like, I think it was Goss's Spear that made that pass to Patty Kane 33 seconds into the game.
That was Shane Gosper, and it was obviously started by none other than Alex DeBrincat, the kid himself.
There you go. But again, like to my point is, it's like, so if Ghost is gone and somebody else comes in, is somebody else making that pass because they know Patrick Kane and they've played with him for 25 games now? They know where he's going to be. That's the part I look at. It's just that chemistry, that organic level of, I know you, you know me, I know you're going to be here, I'm going to be over here, I'm feeding you this and you're going to bang it in. That's the part I think you have to be very careful about when it comes to this time of year. Because I think we've seen a lot of times in past trade deadlines, players come in and they don't really take. So, and now you obviously see other times where players do take, right? But I don't know. I just think the Wings have to be trepidatious with this one because we're starting to see, again, the birth of something special here. Let's not mess with that too much. If it's already kind of organically happening with everything we have right now, I don't know. I like to think about it that way.
Like I said, I think with Steve Yzerman, he truly doesn't know what to do come trade deadline, and he's just kind of waiting for the day to come and seeing what people have to say to him and what they're looking for and what they want to do and see if there might be a fit there. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I don't think that you can move on from a Shane Gosper, even if you do, or if you're able to acquire a first-round pick for him. I just don't think that that's smart as a general manager to make that type of move. Would it help out the team in the long run? Yeah, but we've been building up our prospect pool for so long now that I think now is a time where we can say, okay, let's just stick with what we have. We already have enough. We still have all of our first round picks. We still have our seconds. We have plenty of prospects. I think we're good and we can maintain this team the way that it is without having to maneuver so much. And I know a lot of fans really want to upgrade the defense, but a lot of people keep on saying, let's upgrade the left-handed side. There is absolutely no room on the left-handed side anywhere on this team. And so if you want to make a move, put it on the forward end, because I firmly believe that we need a bigger, heavy hitter kind of guy up there to kind of match what Ben Sherrod can provide and what Moritz Seider can provide, but someone also that can throw the knucks a little bit, because if the matchup is indeed the New York Rangers, Carlo, we watched that game yesterday against the Flyers. They are a rough and rugged team to play against. And so that's probably what we're going to look at. But that's where we come along with, you keep the roster as it is, but you add the depth pieces where it's only going to cost you a fourth, a third at most, right? And so we can live with that, because majority of the time, it's probably like a 5% chance that those picks are going to end up working out for you and become bottom six player.
Yeah, I think picks are great and all, but it's the percentages. When you weigh out, do I want to go and get a first or second round pick with this percentage to make the team versus I have something special happening here, I think I need to bring in this piece. I think that kind of outweighs where like I said, this is new uncharted waters for us, because we're finally at a point now where we are doing the complete opposite of what we have been doing for the past, again, call it 10 years. So, but the one thing I was going to mention, and you kind of triggered this when you were talking there, was we also don't know what Yzerman has in his back pocket with all these RFAs, right? Seider and Raymond, I have no clue what he's got. Nobody really has any idea what he's got, on call it the back burner of contracts and numbers. Nobody knows that. So, we talk about team-friendly deals, and we talk about, I'm like, let's give David Perron 1 year by, 2.25. I have no idea if he might balk at that. But maybe there's room to give David Perron more based off of what is going on the back burner with Seider and Raymond. I think that's where everything starts. You know what I mean? And once those two contracts get locked down, that's when you start to see everything else start to fall into play. I think if we see a player move, and again, call me an overthinker, an overanalyzer, this is just the way I'm thinking about it. But if we see a player get moved that has a little bit of term and some value there, then that tells me that, okay, Seider or Raymond's getting paid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then from there, you kind of go down that list. Would I love to see Sprong come back? 100%. I think he's probably one of the most underrated players on this team right now, possibly even in the league. He's just playing great. Hell of a shot, hell of a player. That through the legs move he made, I wasn't expecting to see that. And had he have pulled it off, we'd be talking about that for an hour now. Like, that's, you know what I mean? But the point is that, yeah, I want to see these guys come back, and I think it's possible. But I think, Raymond and Seider are really going to set the tone for that. And I just wanted to mention that because we're talking about, again, team-friendly deals, players with term, and, maybe not a friendly contract, so to speak, on paper. But I think we got to wait and see what happens with Seider and Raymond. And then on the flip of that, if we start seeing players with term and big numbers behind them start to get traded or moved, the first thing I'm going to say is, okay, Seider, Raymond, or both are likely getting paid in the next, 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, that's a clear indication that the Seiders and the Raymonds, that they're asking for the cuckoo bucks, right? And so, I mean, they both deserve it, honestly, through and through. We talk about the deployment, if you want to call him issues with Seider and how he's deployed night in, night out. I mean, he looks absolutely fine. The points might not be matching his total highs, and that's completely fine. He's still shutting down these Nathan McKinnons, the Cale McCarrs, the Mikko Rantanen.
He's got the hardest role, I think, out of any defenseman in the league or something like that. Like, you gotta put some respect on that. Like, look at his age. Guy hasn't missed a game. I think he's got an Ironman streak going right now.
Correct.
For his age, which is very, very impressive. And look who he's playing against. Look who he's being matched up against every single night. Yeah, to your point, the points aren't there, but the points aren't everything, man. Go watch him play hockey. Again, is he perfect? No, nobody's perfect. There are mistakes there. But again, his age, keep that in mind. He's still developing. He's still learning. But I think I would want him on my team any day. I don't know who I'd want him over. I'm not going to get into that game, but he's unreal. He's an unreal hockey player. He's got an unreal work ethic. And, I think he's going to be a really, really rock solid defenseman. I just hope that the contract and everything works itself out because, the other thing you got to look at too, Zach, is maybe these guys, maybe the Raymonds and the Seiders want to take a 4 to 5 year deal because they know the cap is going to be consistently going up. You know what I mean? So it's you got to look at that piece too. Like, if I'm a player and I know that I can go and get paid and locked up for 8 years, obviously I'm going to consider that, but I'm also going to look at, well, wait a second, what's the cap going to be again in 4 years? So if I do this and I continue to do this for 4 more years, maybe I get this just based off of the percentage of the cap rise. I think I'm going to take that route. I'm going to bet on myself a little bit because I'm more at Seider and I'm sick. Enough said. And maybe that's the angle that they go with this. And if that were to be the case, well, then you got the room to bring the Sprongs back, the Perrons back, and the Kaners back. And now we're rolling right into next season with a very familiar group. And we're not seeing the crazy turnovers year after year after year. So,
to be fair for Lucas Raymond also would be on a non-missing game situation too, where he'd have the same Ironman streak as Moritz Seider had he not been injured by Ben Sherrod. I just wanted to throw that out there. But I think you kind of Steve Yzerman. He did the exact same thing with Stamkos. He did it with Kucherov. He did it, I believe, with Hedman. He didn't give them 8-year deals right away. He gave them, lower term extensions to say, I need you to do this for me now. You will eventually get paid. You will. But you need to help out the team one way or the other by doing this for us right now. $6 million, $7 million, $8 million, it's still a lot of money if that's what you're going to give them for the 5 to 6 years. And then within that time, the cap's going to go up 4 times the amount than what it is now. Well, maybe not that much, but it will probably be well over $100 million per team. And so that's when you're going to start seeing them getting paid the $12, the $13 million that these Nathan McKinnons and Austin Matthews are signing for. I mean, and that's who I wanted to bring up is Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews has done that. He's him and his agent were very smart for doing that. But before I go too far off the rails, we keep on talking about the playoffs and everything. since January 1st, and it's because they're having such a good 2024 calendar year so far. They're 14-4-2 since January 1st, and kind of talking about how we keep on mentioning the playoffs, and outside Red Wings fans are going to hate on us for saying this, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I thought this team was going to be a playoff team, but a lot of those people outside of Red Wings fandom just did not foresee this team be better than the Ottawa Senators and the Buffalo Sabres. And so now that they are, we can easily say that they are a playoff team because of the situation that they're in, being I believe it's 1 point ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And we have 2 games we have 57 games played. They have 59 games, and we have 1 point ahead of them. And This is a team that hasn't sniffed the playoffs since 2016. And I believe we won maybe 1 game against the Tampa Bay Lightning that season when we did make it to the playoffs. And so, Carlo, I kind of want to open up the floor to you a little bit to kind of dissect a little bit, if you want to use that word, the difference between the 2016 roster of the Detroit Red Wings compared to now. What in our viewpoint, what is the key differences that makes this team a better team than what we were in 2016?
Well, I mean, again, the depth players. I mean, in that year, you look at that roster, which I'm looking at it right now, and the first thing that stands out to me is the highest point total on that team. Who was it? I believe it was Zetterberg with 50 points.
13 goals.
Zetterberg had 13 goals, 37 assists, 50 points, and then Datsuk was right below him at 49 points, which consisted of 16 goals, 33 assists. And then from there it was a pretty significant drop off. I guess not. Gustav Nyquist had 43 points, 17 goals, 26 assists. After Gustav Nyquist, there's obviously Thomas Tatar, who was right up in that 45-ish range. And then it just kind of dropped off pretty significantly. I mean, there was I think there was rookies that year too. I think Athanasiou was a rookie that season. I can't be certain, but he didn't really have that many good point totals. But nonetheless, that's the first thing that I look at is point totals right away. And then again, quality of player. You compare that team to this team that we have right now. And again, you compare point totals and whatnot, and you have quite a bit of people that are over even 30 points or kissing 30 and then over and above that. But then you look at quality of player.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to cut you off here, but talking about you brought up Zetterberg and how he only has 50 points. Larkin's already being that with damn near 25 less games than what he played.
DeBrincat's at 50. Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah. There's those guys are gonna be hitting some point totals that we haven't seen a player do. And then to talk about, and I think we brought this up earlier, there's 12 players on this team right now, one of them being Jake Wallman, that have over 10 goals. They're in that double-digit, goal territory, and obviously that's a testament to the point totals. But I think that speaks to the quality of player, number one, the quality of coaching staff and systems. I mean, it's a complete thing. It's a complete package. We're talking about an organization here, and you can't really look at, you can't blame the coach here, and then, I'm blaming the player here. We're blaming the Detroit Red Wings when things hit the fan or when things go very well. You're talking about the team. You can't really look at it as an individual thing, which is challenging, hard to do. But I don't know. You look at those two rosters, and you just go up and down that lineup. You look at the names. There's a lot more household names with a far more respect on their names on this team we're seeing right now. And are they depth players? Yes. But to have depth players that also have that brand behind them, I think that's the difference between this team. And maybe that's what Yzerman's logic was going into rebuilding this franchise was obviously every team needs depth pieces, but if I can find some depth pieces that have that brand power behind them, maybe that's his logic. Who knows? And I must say, it seems to be working out. So let's oorah to that.
One thing that I am noticing on this list of the 2016 roster is that, and this might give people PTSD a little bit, but the goalie tandem was Peter Mrazek and Jimmy Howard at that point. I mean, you had Peter Mrazek, and I believe it might have been the season next where people were up in arms, where he wanted an extension, and we ended up trading him to the Philadelphia Flyers for a third. But in that season, he had a 921 save percentage and a 2.33 goals against average. I mean, in a league right now, yes, it's easy for us to say that our point totals are a little bit higher than that team in the past. Goal scoring is at its all-time high currently, but you look at our goaltending right now, I mean, you have Sir Alex Lyon, the great, posting 2.68 goals against and a 916 save percentage. I mean, I would say that the main difference here, and you've already touched on this, is just the overall depth and the amount of players on this team that are actually contributing night in and night out. And it might not always be on the score sheet, but it's always the little things, right? Being in the correct position, hitting the right player, or stick lifting, doing whatever it needs to be done to put yourself in a prime situation than what the 2016 team did. And they barely squeaked in, mind you. They barely squeaked in. Granted, we're barely holding, if you want to call it barely holding on to that first wild card spot. If we get those 2 points tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks, I mean, we have 3 points ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we're slowly, I mean, we are, and it's coming along. We are gaining traction on the Toronto Maple Leafs, whether if they want to, push us aside or not. But yeah, once we get those 2 points, if we do, hopefully we do, knock on wood here, but we're only 4 points behind them, buddy, and they should be a little nervous that we can overtake that third spot. Their goaltending sucks. Morgan Riley is still out. I mean, there's a lot that can happen, but the first wild card spot, honestly, it's very much for the Red Wings to lose at this point. Only them can lose, and no one's going to take it from them. It's theirs to lose.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you there. I think Toronto's playing on another level right now. Like we talked about it earlier, Bertuzzi seems to be finding his groove. He scored 3 last night on his birthday, and I'm a big Bert fan, so I'm really happy, regardless of the team he plays for. Very happy that Tyler Bertuzzi, the player, obviously scored those 3 goals on his birthday. Happy birthday, or happy belated birthday, Tyler. But to see him come about, just being a Bertuzzi fan is great. But Toronto's on; they're playing very well. I watched like the third period last night. They seem to be playing very well. I think Riley was back last night, so I think he was a 6-game sussy, I think. But I can't remember if he was. I only watched the third period, but. Yeah, like their goaltending's questionable. I think Joseph Wall's coming back for them. Who knows what's going to happen there? But Toronto's also streaky. So, I mean, to your point, yeah, Detroit could very well come in and upset that. I mean, I think Detroit even has a game. No, they have the same amount of games played. So it's going to be a race, man. If Detroit wins today, that obviously gives Toronto a game in hand, but 4 points is the variance between the two. I definitely think Detroit could arguably get into that third spot in the Atlantic. Again, to my earlier point, sample size. We need to see this play keep going. It's going to be very interesting next couple of weeks, man. I'm really, really pumped to watch a bunch of hockey to see how everything kind of falls.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting March 8th. I believe that's the date for the trade deadline. And then the playoffs are, whether if you want to believe it or not, they're inching just as close too. I mean, we're less than 2 months away from playoff hockey. It's unbelievable to even say that. And so, but I think we can kind of end that talk here, and we're going to kind of go really quickly about this. Berggren trade rumors, 7 goals, 4 assists in the last 11 points in the last 10 games. He ended up scoring last night too. I'm not sure if that's counted when I checked this morning on Elite Prospects, but I just don't. I know that 7 scouts were at the game last night for the Grand Rapids Griffins, and I understand that he might not be happy that he's not on the Red Wings roster after spending a lot of time with them last season. But I do not foresee him being traded at the trade deadline. I think that this is a situation where Yzerman will let him play his time in Grand Rapids, try to reconnect with him in the summer. And if nothing works out, then you try to make something happen in the offseason. Are you in agreement with me on that?
Yeah, too. I think I am to a degree, Zach. I mean, like, again, it's Steve Yzerman we're talking about here. He's not going to make a trade just to make a trade. That's just not who he is. He's very, very dialed into the way he checking the boxes of his plan. Again, he's not going to make a trade to make a trade. I wouldn't make a trade to make a trade. If it makes complete sense and it's going to positively impact the team on the minute this person arrives, then yeah, I'm sure he's going to figure out a way to make a deal happen. But then you look at the other side of it too, to your point about Grand Rapids. I mean, they're playing very, very well. I think they're second or third in their division now.
Second.
And they beat Texas last night, who's in third, right? So,
Yep.
you know what I mean? So do you keep him there to go on that run? You know what I mean? Is that going to be good for his development to the point where he earns his spot on the big club next season? I mean, because that's kind of the way the message has been delivered to the team by the management team. It's like, you want to make this big boy club, you got to earn that. Like, you got to knock this guy off his podium to get here. We've seen it before. I think Raymond did it. Soderblom kind of did it, and then he went back into to GR. But Yzerman gives everybody an opportunity to make the team if they truly earn that. So, I mean, you look at it that way. So, yeah, I think, is there a possibility that Berggren is kept for the remainder of the season and then ride him into the postseason? 100%. You're silly not to think that. But I think equally on the other side, you are silly also to think that, Yzerman's going to make a trade to make a trade. Not going to happen. It's going to have to be a very positively impacting deal. And I think that's why we haven't seen him moved yet. I don't think that is the outcome that he's seen. I don't think he's seen anything that would be positively impacting on day one. Hence why Berggren's still here and he's still playing in Grand Rapids. He's still scoring in Grand Rapids, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, and it's going back to the point that I was kind of talking about earlier. If you're going to trade someone on defense, I mean, there's really no room for a Simon Edvinsson, as much as you want to believe it or not. There's really no room for a Simon Edvinsson, and it's the same thing with him. I firmly believe that the general managers of these two clubs want these players to play in playoff hockey and not just trade them just for the sake of trading them, much like you're saying. And so I think Berggren can help the team make a deep run. They finally got Matt Luff back. Everyone's clicking over there. They're 10-0-4 in their last 14 games. So they're currently riding a 14-game point streak. Thanks to Ben Simon in his first year with Grand Rapids. Things were slow to start, but the boys are buzzing down there and they look absolutely fantastic, Carlo.
They must be reading off the same SOP, Detroit and Grand Rapids, because they're kind of on that same timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of the way the season started versus, getting through the muck of it, going through some injury stuff, and now they are just buzzing. And they're very aligned in their individual timelines. It's great to see, and I think you're right. I think they want both teams really playing some playoff hockey to kind of have that organic culture start to be built and come back into fold, which makes players different. It does. When you start winning things, when you start getting that experience and going through those types of things, it changes you. It changes your DNA. It alters the way you think about things and go into things. And those are the things that you need, man. Those are the things you need when it comes March, April, going into these exciting times. You need to have that experience. You cannot change my mind on that. So, with that being said, man, I think you're right. I don't think that I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens. I wouldn't be surprised if absolutely nothing happens, given I think we have another 5, maybe 6 games up until the trade deadline. I think the last 2 games are against Colorado and Arizona, respectively, until the trade deadline comes. And I think that's going to put our sample size at a number that we can start to really think about GR moves, whether that be Berggren and how that move can impact the Detroit Red Wings. And then, of course, the whole side on the Detroit Red Wings, whether you're adding by subtracting or whatever the case may be. We still got a ways to go here, but very exciting time for both clubs. Steve Yzerman is the GM, just in case anybody didn't know that. And let's see what happens. I honestly think he's doing the same thing. I think he's looking at, okay, let's see what happens over the course of the next X amount of games. Sample size is key. You need to respect that and let that kind of dictate your moves. And I'm here for it all. I can't wait to see what happens. I'm very, very excited. And again, huge credit to the team for making this insanely unpredictable for you and I, for Stevie Y, and every other buddy on Twitter, online, casual fan, diehard fan. This is gonna be really cool.
Yeah, and I know that I kind of mentioned Ben Simon's name, and not to take away credit for him because a lot of credit it should be given to him for helping out this team, Grand Rapids, as what they're doing. But credit to Sean Horkoff too. Honestly, the general manager of the Grand Rapids Griffins, who really brought in, he brought in some veteran leaders to help out. Like Matt Luff is coming back. We got some other names like Taro Hiroshi still around. So credit to all of them. But yeah, Carlo, I think with that being said, I think the last thing that we want to touch on, because he's near and dear to our heart. Actually, we're going to talk about both of them. I know right before we started recording, we didn't bring them up, but let's talk about Danielson and let's talk about Axel Sandin Pellikka. Axel Sandin Pellikka continues to tear up in the Swedish Hockey League. I don't care what anyone says about him. That is my boy right there. I love him to death. And I don't have real pulled up, but I will pull them up real quick. But talking about Nate Danielson, ever since getting traded to the Portland Winterhawks, he has 6 goals, 17 assists, 23 points for 17 games played. And before he went over there, he was a point per game player, right? And so seeing him now kind of get over that point per game where he's kind of doing a little bit more over there, he's doing a lot of the right things, right? He's hard to get off the puck. He's forechecking players. He's doing well on the faceoffs, and he's scoring goals and making these really nice plays. What do you love about Nate Danielson so far and what you're seeing with him on the Portland Winterhawks? Do you think that he does get a bump up to Grand Rapids or even Toledo or possibly the Red Wings? But in general, what do you think of Nate Danielson so far?
I think he's great. I think he is you look at Nate Danielson, you're like, yeah, that's a Stevie Y type of player. You know what I mean? Especially now with Portland. I think you put good players around him, and I don't want to bash his ex-team, but I just don't think the quality of player was there. And we talked about this with the Red Wings, comparing the roster from 2015-16 to now. Like, you're talking about quality player with some brand power behind them. He has that now in Portland, I think, more so than he did before. And you're seeing the dividends start to pay off on adding that stock, so to speak, to that team. The dividends are there now. And credit to Danielson. I think he's a great player. I think, again, fits the mold of Stevie Y and kind of what he wants the Detroit Red Wings mold to be. I think he's going to fit right in. I personally wouldn't be surprised if the way I've kind of been seeing Yzerman kind of bring people up or keep people down, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in Portland for another full season, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see him in GR either, or anywhere in between, call it Toledo. I don't know. Like, I really think that there's a lot that has to happen that is dictated by the big club that kind of then domino affects all the other clubs below. That's just the way I think about it. I'm not saying that's the way it's happening. That's just my mind, overanalyze, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see either way, whether he jumps into GR, if they think that's going to be good for his development, versus staying in Portland and kind of over-ripening him, which is something the Red Wings tend to like to do. But then again, it's like, if Berggren does get traded, does that open up that spot for him? You look at that. Or if somebody does come up from GR to Detroit, does that open up the spot for him? So I think there's a lot of things that need to happen first to be able to predict that, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. I think we have a heck of a guy in Danielson. I think he's going to be a very, very talented player. We're seeing kind of the start of his name to get that brand. We're seeing the brand start to form there, and it's going to be very exciting to follow him and his path and to see his trajectory, measure that on his way into, whether it be the AHL or the NHL. It's going to be very exciting, and I think we have a really good player in him for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I don't – it's tough to say, right? Because you can kind of go back to Michael Rasmussen. We didn't want him to play that extra year, right? So we forced him kind of onto the Red Wings roster and him play that 1 year. But I don't want to go too deep into it, but you kind of look back and look at situations like that too, right? So anything is possible, but yeah, maybe he stays in Portland for another year. Maybe he goes to Toledo. Maybe he goes to Grand Rapids. But yeah, if you move someone like Berggren, maybe that opens up a spot for him.
Yeah.
I mean, they have Joe Casper over there already. They got Amadeus Lombardi. They have plenty of other players too. And so we'll just have to wait and see. But going back to ASP, and we don't have to go in depth about him, but yeah, he just scored another goal recently where he's got 10 goals, 6 assists for 16 points. He's on pace for 19 in 39 games. He was injured for a little bit. I know that. So he's coming off a recent injury, but kid's just unreal too. Like that. I don't care what anyone says. That is 100% the Filip Hronek replacement at the end of the day. I don't care what anyone else says.
Man, I honestly, you're right about that, but I think I don't want to I don't want to embarrass myself here, but you know how and I'm not comparing him to Cale Makar, so everybody can take it easy. I'm not comparing ASP to Cale Makar, but Makar is not, okay, on paper he's a defenseman, right? But when you watch him play the game, he's not. He's like a rover. It's like he's created a new position for himself, right?
Yeah.
It's like a slot receiver or it's like Jahmyr Gibbs. He could be a running back, but he could also be a wide receiver. He's a rover. He can do both. And he's a Swiss Army knife column. And I feel like Makar's like that. That's been made very crystal clear. The guy's unreal. I think ASP could definitely follow that pathway of being that rover type of player where he is a defenseman, but he could also line up on a wing and burn you. He can just do that. So I'm really starting, based on his highlights, the way he moves, the way he forces the play, I really am starting to get that sense, and his skating is unreal. I'm just starting to get that sense that he could very well be that rover, that defense / left winger, or right winger, whatever, that you see very seldomly. You don't really see that too much. There's something special brewing with ASP, and I think he's going to impress a lot of people when they start seeing him play. You're going to be like, is that guy a defenseman or is he a forward? I feel like people are going to be asking that question legitimately.
The next Brent Burns, some would say. But yeah, for those of you that don't know, the abbreviation of ASP is Axel, Sandin, Pellikka. If you want to go ahead and look him up, look up some of his highlights. Ice Hockey Gifts always posts good highlights of him. So if you want to go ahead and check that person out on Twitter as well as YouTube, go ahead and do that. But Carlo, honestly, very good first episode. I think that's pretty much all we had to say. But as always, what we like to do on our podcast is we like to give a little bit of time for everyone to give their final thoughts. So I'll leave the floor open to you to give your first final thoughts, the first of many coming up.
Yeah, man. Thank you again. Great first episode. Lots of fun. Lots of good conversation. Again, really appreciate being here, and I'm really looking forward to doing this again, especially as we kind of see and follow the rise of this team and see where they go. It's a really exciting time. But final thoughts for me, man, honestly, I'm going to go back to that word sample size. I think we got to see the next 5-6 games play out. I think that's going to be very telling for our next 2 or 3 episodes, to be quite honest with you. Our tones may completely change. They may not. They may get our voices and pitches may get even higher or lower. We don't know yet. But either way, I'm excited. And I really think that it's very important to watch these next 5-6 games leading up to the trade deadline. And if you guys want it, just something that I've done that has helped me kind of get a sense of the room, because we're not in the room and flies don't talk. Watch the post games. If that's one thing I'll leave you guys with, watch the post games, watch the post skates in the morning. They usually come out at noon, 1 o'clock. Post games are usually up within an hour after the game. Stay up and watch them because you really get a sense of the vibe that's in that room. And right now the vibe's high. So, ride that out and let's really see what happens during these next 5 games, these next 5 post games, these next 5 post skates. Let's really try to read the room there because that's going to tell you a lot more than you think. And my final thought, obviously, is let's go Red Wings. I cannot wait to listen to Ken and Mick in a couple of hours. I miss those guys dearly, and I'm very excited to watch this game. And congratulations to Chris Chelios. Obviously, I'm a huge Chris Chelios fan. I think he deserves another guy with big brand power beyond his name for obvious reasons. I think he still rides his bike in the sauna every morning at 7:30 when me and you were sleeping. So credit to Chris Chelios. But big shout out to him. A big congratulations to him. And obviously, let's see what Patty Kane does tonight too. See if he rubs some elbows with Bedsy over there.
Yeah, great first final thought there, Carlo. Much appreciated. Yeah, I love having you on, buddy. This, like I said, great first recording with you. I'm very excited to see what the future holds for us. We got a lot of great stuff planned upcoming, obviously. And a lot of it comes down to the Red Wings, really, on the tone of how we are on this podcast, right? Just like how you mentioned, our pitches could go up, they could go down. I mean, it's been a fun roller coaster, to say the least, that the season has been. I mean, really high October, November, really low December, and now here we are in 2024, 14-4-2 since January 1st. So it's amazing. Playoff hockey is back. This team is back. Detroit playoff sports are back. It's just an unbelievable time to be alive, and I kind of feel bad for the young kids that truly never got to witness true greatness before we were bad, and now they're just kind of just seeing all the goods, right? And so, but I digress on that. But yeah, let's go Red Wings. Let's keep the momentum going, boys. Let's keep pounding the puck. Let's try to hunt down that third spot in the Atlantic Division. Grand Rapids Griffins, keep doing your thing, keep cooking. Please don't trade Berggren yet. I truly believe that he could be playing in the playoffs for GRG. Don't bring up Simon Evanson. If you're going to make trades at the trade deadline, left-handed defenseman is not to move. Personally, I just don't see why you would do that. That just blocks more of their left-handed D prospects unless you want to trade some of them. Yeah, no, let's go Red Wings. Let's go Grand Rapids Griffins. The boys are buzzing. Keep cooking. Keep doing your thing. And so with that said, Carlo, those are my final thoughts. And I think we can go ahead and close it off here. So
wrap her up, folks.
All right, everyone. Well, we definitely appreciate y'all for stopping by once again for this episode of Hockeytown University. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But if you're also on Spotify, why don't you go ahead and give us a follow and rate us those 5 stars. All of that really does help us out more than you probably understand. But I digress. And until next time, we'll see y'all on the next episode. Goodbye.
Wicked. Peace, guys.